Good morning. It's an honor and a privilege to be the opening act of this important conference. With me today is Professor Emeritus of Mathematics and Statistics at the University of Tel Aviv, Camil Fuchs. You may know him as the guy who got it right on election night. Our partner, who's really the heart and soul of this project, Shmuel Rosner, could not be here because of family obligations. My name is Noah Slepkov. I am a fellow at the Jewish People Policy Institute, and I had the privilege of working with Professor Fuchs and Shmuel on this project as an analyst, designer, programmer, and full-stack developer, none of which I had done before. So the point of this project, which is also a book available in bookstores now, is to look at Israel and say, how are people in Israel practicing Judaism? What are they actually doing? Not what do they say, who they say they identify as, but what are they actually doing in their lives? And the challenge, of course, is how do we visualize that? So, Professor Fuchs, you want to say?
Yeah, I want to say several things. Okay. Good morning to you. I'm probably the only one here with gray hair, and so that's okay. That's okay. And I want to say that what we have here, it's an example of how, after doing a lot of statistical analysis, and some of them quite complicated, we got to, at the end, to a visualization which is very simple, basically. So what we did a lot of analysis, and what we have here, that we are going to see, Noah is going to explain that, is going to be something which is not what the Jews are doing, but how we define ourselves. So we are going to define ourselves on basically on two axes. So one of them, it is what we call Masorati, that means how we are traditionalist, and the other is how we defines our Leumi, which is how we're going nationalistics. So the fact is how each of us defines ourselves as us together. That means the Israeli Jews, and we are going to see that that is different than what the Judaism was in the previous generations, and also how the Judaism is outside in the diaspora. So we are going to see that. So those two axes that we came at the end to the conclusion that they define us, and they defined us well. And we did a lot of simulations and a lot of other computations, and then those two axes define us well, and some of them are quite disturbing. Yes.
Okay, so this was the questionnaire. It had about 400 questions in total. So for every holiday, we asked numerous questions. Each one of these lines is a Jewish holiday or holiday celebrated in Israel. So for example, holiday most of you are familiar with, Yom Kippur. We asked 10 questions. Do you go to the synagogue all day and fast? Do you ride a bike? Do you go to hear the blowing of the shofar? Do you go to a beach, etc.? An example of a national holiday, Yom HaZikaron, the Memorial Day which we just celebrated, we asked questions such as, do you stand for the sirens if you're at home? Do you go to an official ceremony? Etc. So the question is with all of this data, 3,000 person survey, 400 questions, how can we make heads and tails out of it? And one of the first things we tried to do is look at computations of, if you do this, and not this and this, you're in this group. But the problem is when you have 10 questions for just one holiday, you have 1,000 different permutations. That's just one holiday, and there are 40 different holidays. So that was not really effective for us. Then we tried to look at pairings and pair holidays together, and a holiday, and if they do these two things, they're in this group, but that also was challenging. Then we looked at more advanced statistical modeling with this gentleman's vast experience and knowledge, and this was trying to put the variables on a two-dimensional plane, but again, it wasn't very useful, and it wasn't very telling, and it didn't show what we wanted it to do. Then we tried cluster analysis and other statistical modeling, ineffective, And we were still trying to find this magic formula, this algorithm which we could use to both understand and visualize the data. And what we came to this idea of taking questions and putting them on a two-dimensional axis of nationalism and tradition. So a holiday like Yom Kippur, it's a traditional holiday. A holiday like Memorial Day is a national holiday. And we chose 32 questions, 16 from each category, such as, in my opinion, Judaism is mainly a religion, or in my opinion, Judaism is mainly a nationality. And using these variables, we created an algorithm that would calculate where people are in these two axes. And what we were able to do is place Israeli society into this rubric. So here we have 17% of Israelis who are very traditional, but not nationalistic. And this, where we find most Israelis, we call them Jewsraelis, who are both traditional and nationalist. And these are just your Israelis, your secular Israelis, who are not traditional, but very nationalistic. And then we have universalists, which is the smallest amount, who are neither nationalist or traditional. And then using this, we can place everybody who's taken this survey and put them on a map. So that dot represents the overall average of Israeli Jews. And then we can take any variable within the data and put it along the spectrum. So here's the variable for religiosity. We ask people, how do you define yourselves by religiosity? And you see here, totally secular traditional. And so, for example, Haredim, who are not nationalist, but are very traditional, are there. And you have totally secular Israelis who are in this side.
Of course, we're talking about the majority of the people. We're not talking about all of them. That's
right, the average.
Yeah.
So, if we looked at the 2015 election, of course we did this before the recent election. So this is the 2015 election. You have merits here on the universalist side, and then you have most of the centrist parties, the mainstream parties, are very close together, all in the same nationalist line, but they vary up in tradition.
As I said, very disturbed.
So then, of course, we wanted people to interact with this, not just to say, okay, this is our findings, but we wanted people to actually say, okay, where do I fit in this picture? So we have on this website, these are the questions. And on the website, you can go and when you do the questionnaire, you can see where you are on this. So now what's left, all of you please take your phone. This is their last slide. So take this QR code. For those of you who speak Hebrew, please use the Hebrew site, the English site I did last night before I went to sleep. For those who are interested. And find yourself on the map of Israeli Judaism, and we'll present the findings next year. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Are there any questions? Are there questions? Are there any questions? Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
You mentioned you had 10 questions per
Up to 10 questions. Some holidays only had 3 or 4 questions.
But then finally you added to 16 parameters.
That's right. Yeah.
So how was that mapping?
Well, that's what happened is that we did a lot of computations and a lot of other and what the data that we get here are very robust. That we tried that on basis of 9 and 25 and so on, a lot of questions, and we got quite the same visualization. If we're talking about visualization, we got that that is why it is disturbing, because if you take other questions, you get more or less the same picture that we have here. So this 16 to 16, that was something that we got at the end, which was one of the basically something like we call it a median of what we get with a lot of other models.
Would you say that the 16 are like special feature, like features extraction?
Not really. They're not. This is something that we got as a median of that, but we can do others, and we get the same kind of pictures that we have. The 55 there and 12 here, and something like that. those numbers remain
Okay.
constant.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
You don't think that the affiliation to Judaism,
Well, the names are not.
Yeah, is something that very few people, by the way, if you would do it in the United States, I think you would find religiosity in the same position, because people, very few people are ideologically secular.
Right.
So a lot of people who are sort of affiliated Jews
Right,
would say they are Jewish.
but they are more in that side that they are more liberal. So those people here are less liberal than the others. So this is a corner here, the corners of what we call universalists. They are more liberal, stuff like that, calling that in another questions. Okay?
Okay, we'll have to talk about it.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.